Take a look at this picture. If you're like most people, then you're probably disgusted that these kids would rather spend time on their phones than explore the wonderful world of art. It's an understandable feeling to have. However, in relation to this picture anyway, you'd be wrong. These kids aren't distracted by their phones. They're actually learning from the museum's app after having just admired the piece. The virality of this image struck a nerve with me about a misunderstanding that many people have with modern technology. The idea that cutting-edge technology is ruining society goes all the way back to Socrates raging against the written word for making men forgetful and stupid. But I think it's especially wrong here. Smartphones aren't just entertainment tools or distractions. Since the iPhone's release in 2007, phones have become central to daily life in the modern world, making anyone who doesn't use one practically Amish. In the short decades since their widespread use began, people have started to wonder, are phones apart from us or a part of us? Of course, our smartphones aren't physically attached to us yet, but do these little rectangles of light and low battery serve as extensions to our minds? Surprisingly, I'm not insane for asking this. The mind is described as the processes that determine consciousness, thoughts, and memories. And while Siri isn't conscious yet, phones can and do help us with thinking and whatever the other one was. How many times have you had a disagreement with someone and one of you pulls out your phone to look up the answer? How many times have you been able to talk with your Facebook friend from the other side of a state, country, or continent? How many times have your political opinions been affected by a tweet or a headline that you read on your phone? It's hard to get a solid number on how much smartphones have changed our thinking, as no one predicted the coming of the smartphones early enough to begin a longitudinal study. And many catchy headlines about how smartphones are totally ruining our brains are rarely backed by any decently done studies. However, with a combined 8 billion checks of our phones per day and access to the information superhighway on speed dial, it isn't difficult to imagine the sorts of cognitive shifts that smartphones have caused. Anyone who remembers a time before the internet lived in our pockets could probably attest to that. The human brain has an estimated storage capacity of 2.5 petabytes. That's 2,500 terabytes, by the way. And phones these days have, at most, 128 gigabytes, or 0.0051% of a brain's storage capacity to work with. That would make phones a pretty bad extension of our memory, right? Wrong. While total storage capacity is lower, consistency is far better. When you remember something using that bit of meat in your head, you don't just relive the exact stimuli from the memory before putting it back into storage untouched. Instead, you change the memory. Details shift and are altered. Some things are omitted entirely, others get made up. With rare exceptions, pictures on your phone don't change each time you look at them. That kind of consistency means that your phone can act as a crutch to help you more accurately recall an event. Furthermore, since smartphones are connected to the internet, you can theoretically use most of the internet as your prosthetic memory. And while our brains have 20,000 times the storage capacity of our phones, the constantly growing internet beats our gray matter 480 times over. So, it's not completely crazy to say that our smartphones are extensions of our minds. If you take into account that most phones contain all kinds of personal information such as passwords, credit card numbers, bank account access, contact lists, and more, it seems even less crazy. It's arguable, of course, that our smartphones are more of a tool than any real part of us. And that's a fair thought. People don't generally consider wrenches as human add-ons. So what makes phones different? Well, I believe that the modular nature of smartphones is their defining feature in our lives. It's possible to make changes to a wrench, therefore redefining its purpose, but it's not their main selling point. You buy a specific kind of wrench for a specific task. You buy a smartphone to do as many tasks as you can assign to it. And because you can just get more apps, you can always expand and personalize that roster of abilities. At some point, your phone becomes filled with data unique to you, such that losing it would be comparable to losing a part of yourself. That's just my opinion, though. But if you disagree, one way or the other, we should decide on how to think about our smartphones before they are physically attached to us.